I've been thrifting since as long as I can remember and have been going regularly for 20-something years, so I like to consider myself an advanced thrifter. From consignment stores to big box stores to online shopping to boutiques and garage sales, I've done it all. You too can shop like a lifelong thrifter with the tips I'm sharing today, and trust me, they're actually good ones that you haven't heard before. I'll share what you need to know, tips I commonly hear but wouldn't recommend, and some realities that no one ever talks about. Oh, did you want to see my receipts? These pieces are all thrifted and make up a large percent of my wardrobe. Now let's get into the good stuff. Hi, I'm McKay. I make videos about capsule wardrobing and finding your style as a normal person. Grab a drink, get cozy, and let's dive into the world of thrifting. Tip number 1, have a plan and prioritize. Have an idea of what you're looking for. Sure, you could check every category and every size, but it will take time, especially at big box stores like Value Village, which have a huge amount of inventory. Thrifting inherently takes more time than shopping new because no two pieces are the same and there's a lot to wade through. If you have a limited amount of time, let's say like an hour, you need to be strategic and know what you're looking for to increase your odds and help cut through that noise. Maybe you have something specific in mind, like a striped button down or an oversized t-shirt on your wish list. Or maybe you're looking for something like an interesting bag. Those are great indicators of where you should start. Or it could be a general style or vibe that you're taking as an inspiration. Or maybe you're just totally open to possibilities, which is fine too. It's really important to think about what you're really looking for as you're trying to figure out how to prioritize and what to start with, because it can definitely be overwhelming. For example, if you're into vintage clothing, consider using vintage sizing and look for sizes that are bigger than you might typically shop. If you're looking for something more fitted, maybe stick with your normal size or a couple sizes. If you're into boxy, oversized fits, start with the men's section. Having a vision of what you're looking for will save you a ton of time. The more constraints you have and the more you prioritize, the faster you'll go. For myself, I prefer a mix of really simple, clean silhouettes and feminine pieces. So that's something that I'm keeping in mind as I shop. I'm open to a variety of fits, so when it comes to things like tops, I'm generally searching from small through large. Number 2, scan. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot to see. You probably don't want to spend all day at the store checking every square inch, and if you know your style, you really don't have to see everything. This is where it's important to scan and quickly filter the information coming in. I'm not looking at every top, I'm really just scanning through the pieces, looking for things that jump out at me. I'll often kind of run my hands along the hangers and I'm kind of like going in chunks, looking for pieces of information, and the first indicator I'm looking for, which is the easiest, is color. Personally, I like to shop using a color palette that I think suits me really well. I'm looking for things that are cool toned with a medium contrast, things that are a bit more bold, a little bit more smoky. Those are things that I gravitate towards. You might consider the clothes you already have in your wardrobe or colors that you feel good in that will easily mix and match with your closet. So as I'm scanning, I'm really just looking at things that are even in my color palette, and anything that is not, I skip over. Next, I'm scanning for things that match my style, and if something catches my eye, I'll give it a further look and I'll start to investigate a little bit further. The next thing I tend to notice is the tag. This doesn't necessarily matter, but it can be a helpful cue. For example, if I automatically see that it's Shein or some kind of fast fashion, I'm probably just gonna keep moving and I'm gonna totally skip over it because I'm just not interested in adding low quality clothes to my wardrobe. You might notice that it's a premium brand or something that's vintage, which might be what you're looking for. And again, it may speak to the quality. The label absolutely is not everything. I would not buy something just because of the label, but it is just another piece of information as you're trying to make decisions. Next, I'm checking the fiber content, and I always check the composition tag. Whether it's new or thrifted, this is incredibly important if you want to be investing in high quality items that will last. Specifically, you want to be looking for things like cotton, linen, wool, cashmere, leather, things like that. Cotton's definitely the easiest to find, but I've absolutely found all of these at different points at the thrift store, so don't give up hope. Natural fibers are typically signs of higher quality. They're going to have better temperature regulation, they're going to feel more comfortable, they're going to age better. Overall, I would just strongly recommend only looking for natural fibers. Yes, that is going to mean that a lot of things don't make the cut, but it means that the few things that you do get are going to be functional and you're going to love them for a very long time. Versus cheap synthetics like polyester, acrylic, and nylon, which are absolutely everywhere. Yes, those do serve purposes, but the majority of the time for everyday clothes, they are just used as cheap fillers. So I would absolutely avoid those. They're not going to be as comfortable. They aren't going to age well, and they are just going to show signs of wear. Start learning what's high quality and what isn't by touching it. I know that sounds weird, but it's really important. Feel the variances from one fabric to another, and you will start picking up on those things pretty quickly, and you will be able to identify things just by touching them and eventually by looking at them as well. It'll become very obvious if something is synthetic or if it's a natural fiber, which again is really going to help you move even quicker. Next, unfortunately, you will need to inspect for damage. Some stores are better than others at making sure that things are in good condition, but you want to look for things like loose seams, threads that are coming undone, loose buttons, any kind of holes or stains. And you also want to look at the pilling. If something is made out of cashmere or wool, you're going to be able to get rid of those pills very easily versus something like acrylic or polyester where you're going to be stuck with that. Look at the general quality. I would do this for new clothes or thrifted clothes. Is the stitching neat? Are the buttons reinforced? Things like that. Does it look durable and like it's going to last? Those are all things you should consider and will ultimately help you make better decisions. Finally, you're going to either try on your clothes or know your measurements and bring a measuring tape with you. Since COVID, most stores have removed their dressing rooms, but there are typically mirrors around, so if you're comfortable just wearing like a fitted base or a t-shirt, you can try most things on in front of the mirrors, but obviously people are able to see you. Personally, I don't even bother looking for pants. They are just way too hard for me to find if I can't try them on. Between the inseam and the rise and trying to get a curvy fit, it is nearly impossible. Back when I was in high school, I remember going to Goodwill for my jeans, and I would say I'd probably try on about 20 pairs of jeans and maybe one would fit. So this is an issue that I have, again, regardless of the store. It is just so hard for me to find a pair of pants that it is not even worth the risk of trying to thrift them, regardless of if they're tailored or not. The odds are just not in my favor and I'm not going to risk it. So you might have a similar issue as well. Something to consider, again, if pants are really hard for you to find, maybe just skip over them. If you have a hard time with blouses, maybe skip over those. Number 3, learn the store's systems. Many stores use a color system to track inventory. So for example, everything that's put out this week would have a red tag on it. Everything that's put out next week would have a blue tag, etc., etc. Once red comes back around, everything from the old batch is going to be removed. This might go to the bins or somewhere else, but it's going to be taken out of the local stores. The oldest stock that's about to be sent off will typically be half price. So again, just something to be aware of. You absolutely can find things that are still in great condition and look great. It happens all the time. I'm usually not shopping by color. I usually will just have a nice little surprise if I'm at checkout and I see it was 50% off, but just because it's been there a while doesn't mean that it's not good. You can absolutely ask employees when the discount color changes and when things are restocked. You do not need to find out by trial and error and by going all the time and trying to like somehow figure it out yourself. You can totally ask. It's not rude, just be polite. Some stores will even have additional discount days. This might not be advertised well, whether that's on purpose or not. I know there's a local store around me. It's actually a Goodwill of all places, and they do have a discount day every week. I didn't know this for the longest time, so again, you could ask if you wanted to. It doesn't hurt to ask. Overall, just remember to be kind to employees. They have a hard enough job, so just be considerate and put things back where they belong. If there's damage that you're willing to fix or live with, ask for a discount at checkout. For example, if it's a vase and you can just turn it around, do that. Or if it's a sweater that you're willing to mend, great. I'm still so proud of this, but once I was able to get a cashmere Free People cardigan for $5, there was a pretty big hole in it, but I was thankfully able to fix it pretty easily and no one would ever know there's a hole. So it doesn't hurt to ask. You never know. Lastly is to know the return policy. If they have one at all, it'll typically be a pretty short window, like 7 days or 14 days. So make sure that you're within that window and know that it's often in-store credit. If they don't accept returns, make sure that there is absolutely no damage because they will not make exceptions. Also, holiday and seasonal things typically don't apply because then you could just return it after the holiday. So now you know. So for example, if you want to try on several pairs of jeans because you don't know if they'll fit and there's no dressing rooms, just know that you're only going to get in-store credit back and you might have a limited window to spend that. It might be like 30 days. So that could be a bit tricky to finesse. Also be mindful of where you're returning things to. This can apply to places like Goodwill, for example. If you buy something at one location, you may not be able to return it anywhere else because they do operate somewhat independently of each other. Or if you're offered in-store credit at one place, it might not apply anywhere else. So again, find out what the exact details are if you're planning on doing returns because that is going to matter and they are not going to make exceptions. Number 4, experiment. Try different stores if you can. You might notice better inventory or different pricing, or just prefer one over another. You might also want to experiment with different types of thrifting, like consignment stores. Consignment stores, you're going to have much better chances of finding things that are in great condition and are a little bit more current. However, you are going to be paying a premium for that convenience. This is the easiest level of thrifting because everything is already curated and nice and organized. On the lower end, you have places like Plato's Closet. They're still going to have a pretty big inventory and a lot of brands that you recognize. At more of a mid-range, things are going to be more curated and the brands are going to be a little nicer. Oftentimes, they won't accept any fast fashion. I really like these places. They're really nice. They can be a lot of fun to browse. At the highest end, things are going to be very curated and designer. These are going to be quite expensive. I actually haven't been to any. There just aren't any around me, and I frankly don't really have an interest. When I hear about celebrities saying that they have a vintage store, this is generally what I think of. Again, things are highly curated, very beautiful, definitely more expensive, but it's an option. Number 5 is clothing care. This probably goes without saying, but absolutely wash everything. And no, bed bugs aren't an issue. I don't know why there's so much fear mongering around this. That has never been an issue in my 20-something years. Yes, hypothetically it could happen, but I would not be afraid of picking up anything at a thrift store. Just use your best judgment and wash your clothes like you would anything else. I've seen videos about people putting things in the freezer for days or all kinds of weird stuff. You do not need to do that. Just wash your clothes like you normally would. It's not a big deal. A little maintenance goes a long way. You might want to use some leather conditioner on leather boots, or spend a little bit of time depilling a nice sweater. Those things will really make a difference and help it feel nice and fresh. We've got some pet peeves that we need to talk about. There is a ton of misinformation when it comes to thrifting, and I want to clear that up so that you can have the best shopping experience possible. Thrifting has gotten a lot more popular over the years, which is great. I am so happy to hear that. I love that it's becoming more accepted and that people are actually giving it a try. But I keep coming across some tips that just don't make sense if you want to shop effectively and if you want to shop like an advanced thrifter. Here are some tips I hear all the time that I would not recommend. Check every item regardless of the section. Absolutely not. This is going to be super, super time intensive and just isn't really worth it in my opinion when it comes to your time versus the reward. Sure, if you want to be there for hours and hours, go ahead and check everything, but I would not do that. Sure, things can be in the wrong category. Sure, you might find something in the men's section that you like or something in the little boys section. It is possible. It is less likely. Unless you just do not care about how much time it takes and you are willing to be there all day, prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. Think about how much your time is worth versus the potential reward. Yes, it is possible to find those things in other sections, but those odds are going to become lower and lower the further down the barrel you're trying to scrape. Go at opening. There isn't a restocking fairy that magically puts everything out right before the doors open. Stores restock different categories throughout the week and throughout the day, so it doesn't really matter what time you go. If women's tops are restocked on Tuesdays, those are going to be restocked throughout the day. So if that's something that's incredibly important to you and you want to have the first pass at women's tops, go on a Tuesday, but otherwise don't think any deeper than that. The time doesn't matter. Also remember that style is subjective and that different shoppers are going to have different preferences and you're going to be looking for different things. You don't need to compete. Yes, if you go during the weekends, it's going to be much busier. So if you want to avoid the crowd, think about going during a slower time, like a weekday, preferably from 10 to 5. Check the go backs. I think the rationale here is that things have already been filtered through and are therefore somehow better, but that's generally not the case in my experience. First, most stores don't have changing rooms anymore, so these are somewhat obsolete. And second, people have different styles. So what somebody else thinks is really cool and stylish, you might not. These are going to include all categories, all sizes, so everything's going to be jumbled together. It's really not increasing your odds by any means. Hide things. People love to squirrel things away with the intention of coming back later, and it drives me absolutely insane. Employees have a hard enough job as it is. Do not make it harder. And if anything, your little treasure is gonna get put away even faster because it's clearly not where it belongs. Don't do this. Go as often as you can. I think the intention here is to increase your odds of finding things you like by seeing more inventory. But remember, this is not how thrift stores work. Things are slowly trickling in from day to day.
Oh, hello, puppy. Hello.
You aren't going to see dramatic shifts between today and tomorrow. Again, I can't emphasize how much people are looking for different things. You'd be surprised how often you'll see something that you think is absolutely amazing and the person in front of you doesn't even give it a second glance. They do not care. You're not really giving yourself better odds by going every single day. If you want to switch up locations, sure, do that. But I certainly wouldn't go to the exact same store every day or every other day. I wouldn't even go to the same store once a week, because it's going to be mostly the same stuff. Before you go thrifting for your first time, there are some realities that you should be aware of. Your feed is probably flooded with all kinds of hauls and incredible finds, and while that does happen, that's not how it usually works, and there are definitely some drawbacks to be aware of. You are not going to find gems every time, and there are going to be many times that you leave the store without finding anything. That's okay. It's totally normal. Be patient. As you keep going, you will find things that you like. Don't compare yourself to the highlights that other people are posting online. And also be aware that where you are shopping could make a big difference. Believe me, as someone who has done a lot of thrifting in the Portland metro area and who has also thrifted in a small town in Idaho, those are very different experiences with very different inventory. I hate to say it, but some stores are much better or much worse than others, and you don't always have control over that. So in some places there are absolutely incredible finds where I could consistently find things, and other areas I really struggled and it wasn't even worth going. It's becoming harder to find high quality pieces. Thrift stores are a mirror of the masses. I am seeing more and more Shein and Walmart and fast fashion brands in thrift stores because that's what people are buying in the real world, and they're trickling down. Nowadays, it's pretty easy to resell high quality pieces, so less of them are being donated. Thrifting is not size inclusive. Typically, you're going to see size small through extra large, maybe 2X, maybe 3X if you're lucky, but it really depends on where you're shopping, and there might not be much. I would say that where I live, size large is typically the biggest category, but that could vary from place to place. Thrifting is getting a lot more popular. Mixed with inflation, the prices are rapidly rising, especially at big box stores like Goodwill and Value Village. Depending on the prices, it might not even make sense to buy things that are thrifted. So again, experiment and use your best judgment. There you have it. You are now ready to shop like a lifelong thrifter. I would love to know any tips or tricks that you have in the comments below. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!